Wound, Part 8, pages 102 through 115. They're well dressed. They average between 18 and 22 years old, though some are over 30 and 40. One is 52. There's no real leader of the group. No surprise they brought a monk. He's 26 and well-versed in Socratic rap as a preacher. Among the other four Socratic monks, Johann is the highest regarded preacher, though they too work always as a group. Johann is from Stuttgart, Germany, and came to Marseille to witness the Mars launch and a monk exchange for 14 months. He speaks French fluently. The dinner group this evening is 31 men and women. There are 10 women in the group. They're all dating one other member of the group. Women in Marseille usually have jobs. The watchers don't work. The scapegoats are the rumor mill of the castle. If they don't like someone or something, you'll hear about it over Rumor Mill, a social network on the Breezeweave. The scapegoats are all trying to start a career, but don't have enough talent. They all talk about themselves in the third person like they're the best, though they're some of the worst. Some of them are really good, but they don't have nearly what it takes to make it, and they blame everyone else. They're the most boastful group of cads you could ever aspire to meet, and they're even proud of the fact that they're boastful as they stand on tables with a drink and gesture deleteriously like peacocks. They're a nuisance, and they seem oblivious to their only real untapped talent is restaurant reviews. If you ever wanted to know where to eat, Rumor Mill has a blog section several can write on. The Scapegoats restaurant blog, Where Not to Eat, is shamefully put out for free by 31 friends everyone hates. Aside from the erudite blog they put out, is unsurpassed. The angle is they either like the food or talk trash. They dress nice and all wear flat-bill baseball caps. Somehow the flat-bill was around in 1200 CE when the vast majority of clothing is 13th century France. The cap is worn forward, backward, to the right. The hat worn conveys different meanings by being worn at different angles. Right means agreement. Left means disagreement. Backwards means uncertainty. Straight and forward means pride. They really are a bunch of clones. There are roughly 2.5 dozen scapegoats in the 7 castles of France, giving us over 100 of these obnoxious twits who somehow are the hottest and most intelligent writers on Terra. Their 8-table group at Boto is already bad enough to bother, and they're being pampered for it. That's the end of that first pamphlet, so we're going to the full book here. In that one, it was a little strange because I wrote on one page only and then went backwards and wrote on the other side of the page, but this one's more conjunctive. It just goes from one page to the next, one, and then 2 is on the back of the other one, but it starts with 105. And common sense. Oh, I'm sorry. Common names in France at this time are Charlemagne, Socrates, Aphrodite, and Terra. The scapegoats hate the name they were given, scapegoats. They don't call themselves anything. They're not really the fly-off-the-handle type. They're more the supple and word disagreement type. They act important. They lack in subtlety what they make up for a lack of charm. They laugh big and mock things. They say what, even when after 2 repeats. They say what, even after 2 repeats. They're annoying. Some of them have gotten the group kicked out of after getting buzzed on alcohol by jumping on tables to mock someone who complained to them for being loud while eating. They're all trying to be less ill-mannered. Since Michel got himself in trouble for such a display 3 months ago, Michel is their impromptu leader except in times when Germain has contested. This is their first outing together since Michel was released from 3 months house arrest for tipping a table. Michel has had 2 prior offenses. In one, the previous offense, he threw a drink across a room to nail a guy, telling them to stifle it. They do fly off at times. He was caged for a week. The offense before where he was caged today was for spitting in the face of a waiter for bringing him a crispy duck breast without a tzatziki sauce promised by the menu. Even with the obnoxious behavior today, they're currently more subdued than usual. Another customer asked for their reservation, and the goats were happy enough to oblige for the sake of Michel. Jermaine and Colin have remained busy talking with Colin's girlfriend as well, Teresa, instead of scoffing at Michel and his lame attempts to rap at the bereavement of Lucretius, the resident monk. I thought his name was Johann. Interesting. Seems like I changed the monk's name. So the monk's name is either Michel or I'm sorry, that's someone else. The monk's name is either Lucretius or it is Johann. So I'm just going to keep reading and we'll correct that later. Because as I'm reading this, somebody's taking this down on Google Documents. And we're going to get it into a book, whether it's like 100 pages or whatever it's going to be when it's all printed out. We're obviously over page 106, but when it's all printed out, it might only be 150 pages. So it's going to be a novella or a novelette. So, Elena feigns interest since she's sleeping with Michel. Elena secretly has a thing for Colin. Germaine secretly has a thing for Elena, which is the apparent source of the conflict with Michel. Alarmingly, the goats pay the bill without a single arrest or dissatisfaction survey. All 8 tables were pleased with both the meal and the service. Boto's was a hit. No one will know Boto's was a hit because What Not to Eat only publishes reviews of restaurants they hate. They may not like the name, but the scapegoats really are jerks. The elevator at the top of the castle climbs to the top of the 1,500 stories in 60 seconds, which means it travels over 24 stories in 1 second. We'll have to do the math on that, because I think I did it, but I'm not sure if I did it right, because I have a side note. That's 5 miles from top to bottom. The whole thing uses a track rather than a cable system. It's a magnetic levitation for the entire ride. The elevator reaches a top speed of 270 miles an hour. Again, we'll have to check that to be sure that that's mathematically correct. There are 100 apartments per floor. All of them are 2-bedroom apartments. The castle has 50,000 people living in it with 100,000 total apartments within it. Naturally, there are families that share an apartment. The apartments are on the top 1,000 floors. The bottom 500 are dedicated to the numerous facilities of the castle, including Boto's. All 31 of the scapegoats and resident monk Johann, see, Johann, but not Lucretius. So we might have to make his full name Johann Lucretius. No, because it says here that is the resident, all 31 of the scapegoats and resident monk Johann Alois Ludwig from Stuttgart, Germany, on exchange to study the aspects of the Mars journey as news breezes into the weave. The departed monk is in Stuttgart, the first German stop for the Mach 3, Aloysius, as the rail observer for 8 more months before coming home to Marseille. Monk Marcel and Tante Pratriel and monk Johann are both on exciting missions, sure to construct bombastic raps about it at the nuclei. The building itself is 1.5 miles wide. The apartment hallways are one end to another with automatic sidewalks going in either direction with a path between them and walking paths on either side. The only way to fully grasp these apartments are that they're fitting a Fraser crane. The setup is spacious and still in the lovely post-Gothic interior style of the wealthy in our 1200. They all have a harpsichord and a harp. Some have retrofitted the space a little different, but the basic format is the same. People have been born here, moved, gotten married, had a child, saw their grandkids and great-grandkids do the same, and die at 170 years old. There's 100 apartments every 7,500 feet. That's 2 apartments every 150 feet. That makes every apartment 75 by 75 feet. The rent is 800 terrari a month. It's quite easy to live a life without a job. However, there are perks to working. Working means your apartment costs 0 terrari a month. You get to learn things. You'll explore for free. You meet people. None of that matters to the scapegoats. They'd rather complain. People make excuses to not see them. The goats would rather fart loudly and laugh about it. People don't matter to them. They only find joy in being offensive and then whining because they feel their rights were violated when someone had the gumption to protest. It's a real surprise tonight went off without a hitch. They're well-spoken enough to know better. They just don't care. This evening was peculiar. The Stellarnauts picked up a mathematical signal this morning from Proxima b that wasn't Terran or from Mars. They translated it into a heart movement and it played like gooseberries baked into a butter pie crust on a Saturday a.m. In other words, they picked up a musical signal not their own from whatever is playing, a melody to them 4.2 light years away on a Centaurian and quite alien planet, but for the hauntingly gorgeous concerto in A minor leaking into space after the Stellarnauts pumped out some of their own harmonies with the gain prop transmitter 26.4 hours ago. There's now conclusive proof. Intelligent life beyond our own solar system exists. Not only does exosolar civilization exist, it appears to be empathetic to our existence. 3.5 months later, the Stellarnauts, after communicating in French, set to music as the aliens returned volley with their language set to their music, even though a linguist will still have to interpret the files back on Terra. It happened again. The French Stellarnauts received the musical signal from Kepler 186f as well, and soon it was all 3 otherly world species begun civil discussion without a clue what the others meant, except Proxima b and Kepler 186f knew each other and were awfully excited that we knew of the other in the exchange after we sent files of each conversation to the different species in the dialogue. It was an interesting 6 months that put Terra into a state of awe. We now have a confirm of 2 exosolar civilizations. We may have soon from Kepler 452b in 2 years, but the Stellarnauts have to spring launch home after a 60-second crank of the device that will propel them back to Terra from Mars. Humans are no longer alone. Johann the monk is overjoyed. He has 4 months left of his stay in Marseille before heading back to Stuttgart. The King of France has it arranged for a high-profile meeting for all 35 monks in France with the Stellarnauts along with the other dignitaries from all over the planet who will meet at Castle Paris, where arrangements have been made for them to study in the empty apartments of the castle, which are often frequented as hotel accommodations, since there are 50,000 empty rooms at the very least in the chronology. There are 7 metros in France. Each city has there's 5, because we already corrected that, didn't we? There are 5 metros in France. Each city has 50 to 60,000 people, with 50 to 40,000 empty apartments that are over 5,000 square feet in a 1.5 mile by 1.5 mile supported by an underground ballast 5 miles high castle that looks like a 13th century French clock tower that easily lends to Leavenworth, Washington, as mentioned before, but out to the Frankish tradition following Charlemagne. There's always plenty of room. The Stellarnauts have 4 months prior before they get home. The scientists aboard were the first humans to step on Mars. In their sojourn, they made contact with alien beings, which will continue on Terra with a copy of the same experiment on Mars, Phobos and Deimos, and a linguist to try and interpret the message. The Knots assembled a mile-high spring and gear rocket launcher. The doctors aboard are returning home heroes. The message was left abrupt by allowing the aliens to have the last word. Curious and concerned is how the new friends have to feel in order to set up for an apology in the Terran pickup game. Once the link was secured, and we'll talk over music so the exosolars know it's us, after she descrambles the alien tongues into French and knows what we can do to follow their communication. The next door beings only appear interested in messages faster than light. The messenger will have to be increased in speed to only half a second delay between us and them. In 4 months, all that will be accomplished back at Castle Marseille, from Pythagoras University, and from Planetarium Spring of Gear at the Terran Space Base, which has the launcher stretching 5,280 feet into the sky. The Mars crew will touch down at the landing pad with the self-driving rocket steerage system aboard Archimedes II, located beside the Marseille launcher.